Salute BookTube, welcome to my channel, welcome back to this volume part 2 of my book haul, my recent book haul. I was hoping to do more in the first video, but seeing that I'm new to this and I'm a rookie, my battery was dying and I was worried that I'd just be cut off when the battery dies, so I sort of ended the last part of the book haul. The last video I cut it a bit short, but I'm back now to continue. I think now that it was cut a bit short last time, I might do this in 3 parts. By the way, I've charged my phone now, so it should be okay. I can sit back, relax, take it nice and slow, talk about the books that I've got. Maybe not too slow because we'll be here for hours. I can talk for hours about books if I had to. But yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll make this as a part 2 and then I might make a part 3 maybe tonight, later tonight. It's about 5 p.m. here in where I'm at. For those who don't know, I live in the United Arab Emirates in the heart of the Middle East. So it's 5 p.m. now. Maybe I'll do one later tonight, or maybe tomorrow I'll do the third installment of my book haul, because as I mentioned in the first video, I purchased about 43 books from 4 different used bookstores. So yeah, I don't want to do it all in one video. I said I'll do it in two different parts, but because my battery was dying on the last video, I think and I had to end it early, I think I'll split the book hauls into 3 videos. So I guess with that, we can roll on. I know the last 2 books I showed on the last video, I kind of rushed, but in any case, we can just continue because there's a lot of books. And the next one, and I think when I saw this as the next book, I said I'll cut the last video and make a new one, is because this one I found the title intrigued me. It's Strong Men: How They Rise, Why They Succeed, How They Fall, and it's by Ruth Ben-Ghiat. I was gonna completely pass this at the bookstore. I thought it was just I don't know. I don't know, I thought maybe it was something about dictators, something academic, or maybe a few essays about dictators in the 20th century. But then, just taking a deeper look at it, I found it interesting. I just opened randomly. You see a picture of Muammar Gaddafi in 1973, the former leader of Libya. Of course, you can find Hitler in a book about strong men, but I think also there was just different. I mean, there was a picture, a famous picture. I don't think anybody wants to see it anyway, but it's Vladimir Putin without the shirt, which I think encapsulates what this book is about. But it's weird here. There's a section called Protagonists. I think better than me explaining, I might read the back copy just to give you a better idea of what this book is about. It says, "Ours is an age of the strong men. Countries from Russia to India, Turkey to America are ruled by men who combine populist appeal with authoritarian policy. They have reshaped their countries around them, creating cults of personality which earn the loyalty of millions. And they do so by drawing on a playbook of behavior established by figures such as Benito Mussolini, Muammar Gaddafi, and Adolf Hitler. So why, despite the evidence of history, do strongmen still hold such appeal for us?" Historian Ruth Ben-Ghiat draws on analysis of everything from gender to corruption and propaganda to explain who these political figures are, and how they manipulate our own history, fears, and desires in search of power at any cost. Strongmen is a fierce and perceptive history, and a vital step in understanding how to combat the forces that seek to derail democracy and seize our rights. So the wording Russia to India, then Turkey to America caught my attention for this book. The mention of Benito Mussolini, Muammar Gaddafi, and Adolf Hitler as examples of earlier strongmen from almost 100 years now, but still relevant as examples. Well, this isn't a picture with Putin without the shirt, but it's Putin and Berlusconi. Two pictures of Putin and Berlusconi. Another picture here where he's leaning against him. I think they were good friends. And Berlusconi, although now deceased, had some of these strongman tendencies. The other thing that interested me about this book, again, this book is way before, this isn't recent, this is from 2020, so this is way before Donald Trump's second election victory, second administration. Again, published in Great Britain, but there was something about the author Ruth Ben Gheit that I read that was interesting. I don't know if I can find it, but I do remember seeing it when I was purchasing this book at the shop. Okay, her other works are Italian Fascisms, Empire, Cinema, Italian Mobilities, Fascist Modernities, Italy 1922 to 1945, La Cultura Fascista, Italian Colonialism. So a lot of books about Italy, about Mussolini and the Italian fascist moment. Here, her bio says, Ruth Ben Gheit is professor of history and Italian studies at New York University and a political commentator who has received Guggenheim, Fulbright, and other fellowships. An expert on fascism, authoritarian rulers, Donald Trump, and propaganda. She has written for or appeared on BBC World News, The Washington Post, The New York Times, Sky News, The New Yorker, and other media outlets. So I just wonder, maybe I didn't read that very well. It says she's an expert on fascism, authoritarian rulers, Donald Trump, and propaganda. Those four things. And so Donald Trump, she's an expert on Donald Trump, and she's an expert on authoritarianism and fascism. And she saw a connection. I think this is where this book comes out. If we look at the index, we look for Trump. Yeah, Trump is there. He's very, very well represented in this book. So I don't know, is this a warning? This book is published by Profile Books. There's a blurb by Timothy Snyder. So I don't know how well this was received at the time it came out, but considering recent news, recent current events, this book might, I don't know, it could become popular again. It might be prescient. I don't know. I have to read it to find out. But a very interesting book about a very troubling subject. So I was glad to find it in a very random bookstore. But I'll read it and I'll let you know. The next book is, we're back to history. This one is called The Story of Spain. The subtitle is A Dramatic History of Europe's Most Fascinating Country by Mark Williams. I can't tell where that is. I'd like to know. I'm sure there's an explanation. But this book, I just found it fascinating. It's not very big. It's a bit oversized. It's kind of like a textbook, but it actually reads more like a narrative. But it's got everything. You've got if I just go through the chapters quickly on the table of contents, probably that's the fastest way to get an understanding. It says, Chapter 1 is the beginning was Iberia. Chapter 2, the Romans were here. Chapter 3 was medieval Spain. Chapter 4 is Moros y Cristianos. Chapter 5 is birth of the Spanish world. I guess that's the empire. Chapter 6 is ecstasy and agony. Chapter 7 in the French century. I guess that's is it the 18th or the 17th? Then chapter 8 is liberal Spain. Chapter 9, best of times, worst of times. Chapter 10 is the Spanish War. Chapter 11, the age of Franco. And then chapter 12 is contemporary Spain. And there are Nice illustrations. This one says Basques speak a language unrelated to any other. Okay. There are color photos. Just very beautiful. Anybody who's ever been to Spain knows how beautiful the country is. There's also black and white photos. So here, there, at the end of every section, there's also it's sites and what is it? Sites and sites. Okay, sites SIGHTS and then sites SITES, which is, so I guess it's both a history and a bit of a travel guide. I'm not sure, but no, it's definitely history. Here we're on the chapter on liberal Spain. That's a picture of Louise Bonaparte. So that's weird. The first person we find a picture of a person, and it's not even a Spanish person. It's an invader. Maybe we'll have better luck. Who was that? That's King Philip II of Spain. Anyway, just the history of Spain. I've got. This will be a kick in the behind to read some other stuff. I've got this by Raymond Carr, Spain, 1808 to 1975. This is the Oxford History of Modern Europe. Look at this, it's a brick of a thing. I haven't touched this. I bought this in my university days. It's been, I don't even want to know, almost 20 years. I still haven't read this, but I've lugged it along everywhere I've gone. And I still plan to read it now that I have this, which is much more condensed. And this is very big about just the end. Probably covered in a chapter, maybe in 10 pages. Here is covered in a mammoth of a book. How many pages is this? Yeah, we're talking 750-ish pages. So this will encourage me to read that. So hopefully this will motivate me to read this. Again, Spain was a country I visited multiple times, a place I really liked. I've traveled to it, I've been to it multiple times, but I still haven't seen, I would say 50% of it. I'd like to see more, maybe one day, I hope. Yeah, and then going from Spain, the Spanish were the ones who are we can thank for the subject matter of the next book. This is The New World. This is volume 1 of the American Heritage series, which is a new illustrated history of the United States. This is very beautiful cover, beautiful artwork. I guess, I don't know, is that the Santa Maria or the Nina or the Pinta? But this is just, I mean, it's a new illustrated history of the United States. This is old now. It must be aged. Yeah, forward by John F. Kennedy in 1960. It says 1970. It has his birth date and his death. So I don't know. He wrote the forward and then he passed away. When was this published? Was this published before he passed away or just after? Copyright 1963. So he must have written the forward for this series. This is part 1 of the series. He must have written the forward and then right after passed away. So maybe one of the last things he did, or I'm not sure, but it's just beautiful illustrations you have here. It's just, if I open, I mean, you have here some colonies for all. Just yeah, just very beautiful illustrations. Just really nice. What is that? The English colonies. So I found part 1 of the volume 1 of the series, and then I found volume. These are the only 2 volumes I found. Nothing in between. This is volume 14, Roosevelt era. The Roosevelt era. So this one, there's no intro by John F. Kennedy because he only on the first one. But this is about the Depression and the New Deal. Again, lots of photos. Huey Long. What is this? Scene from Gone with the Wind. some modernist American art, but dominated by this figure. So this is part 14 and this is part 1. And so I guess there's about 13 volumes in between that I didn't find or that wasn't available. It's just these two randomly. I'm sure the others, but where they are, who knows. If you go to back to the volume 1, we can see the other books in the series. I think are listed. Yeah, so this one, volume 1, The New World, volume 2 is Colonial America, volume 3, The Revolution, volume 4, A New Nation, volume 5, Young America, volume 6, The Frontier, volume 7, War with Mexico, volume 8, The Civil War, volume 9, Winning the West, volume 10, Age of Steel, volume 11, The Gilded Age, volume 12, World Power, volume 13, World War I and the 20s, volume 14, The Roosevelt Era, which is what we just saw, and then there's a volume 15, which is World War II, and then volume 16 is America Today, and America Today was America in 1963, but very happy to find at least 2, especially volume 1, very happy to find. I'd love to find I'd love to find the entire set, but alas, who knows, maybe online I'll find it. I'll see how these go, how these read, and if it's good, maybe I'll search online and try to find some of the filler volumes. Yeah, very happy to find those. And then we go next. So my next book is sports. It's British football, what you Americans call soccer. So I don't know how appealing this will be to everybody listening to this, but this is by Andrew Mitten, and it's called The Man United Miscellany. And it's a very small book, but anybody who knows sports journalism, soccer or football journalism, and especially Manchester United journalism, knows that name. And the Mitten, well-known fan and journalist on Man United. So when I saw this book available, I grabbed it. I've never read it, but I grabbed it. But just going through it, it's mostly like trivia about miscellaneous trivia about Manchester United. It's probably one of the most popular football clubs in the world. Currently going through a very, very rough patch, but has a very, very strong fan base around the world. We're talking billions of fans. It's just a phenomenon. This is from 2007, so on the glory days of Manchester United. 10 years later, the drop Man United faced was quite extraordinary, and it continues now. 15 years later, this still football club is not in the best of positions, but I grabbed it. I thought it was interesting. Don't know how much of my American readership or viewership would find it interesting, but anybody else around the world will probably find football books interesting. I have a bit of a collection right over there of I'm having trouble doing it with that hand. So this is my sports books, 2 shelves. At the far end, I can't read, yeah, right there. Mostly about football, soccer, but there's other books, especially about tennis, mostly soccer, a few books on tennis, and then 1 or 2 about boxing. Not boxing, it's the Muhammad Ali biography. I think there's a Michael Jordan biography there. A few sports books that I'm fond of, and that'll go there as well. So the next one is by an author that I've appreciated for his other works. He wrote a book about the Shah of Iran. He wrote a book about the Emperor of Ethiopia, the last Emperor of Ethiopia, the last Shah of Iran. He wrote another book speaking about soccer called The Soccer Wars, which was a war between, I think it was Guatemala and Honduras over a football match. He was a communist, Soviet, Polish author, Rudyard Kapuczynski. And this book is The Shadow of the Sun, My African Life. So he was a Polish journalist for the official Soviet news agency, and he was sent around the world to report about third world countries and what the Soviet Union or what the the Soviet Union and what communism was doing to help these countries, these newly formed, liberated, and independent countries. And although we mentioned his stint in Central America and then Iran, most of his time was here which is Africa. I think he spent most of his time in Africa reporting about those 1960s, 1970s coups and counter coups that happened in Africa, which was, in essence, Africa became a playground for the Cold War. If the Cold War was cold in Europe and around the world, it was probably a hot war in Africa. So, of course, he writes from the Soviet side, which is refreshing sometimes to read the other side rather than just the Western or American version of events. It's not the biggest book. All his books are small. I think these are like newspaper articles that he's collated into writings. I'm not sure, but like I said, all his books are usually very, very, very small. There must be a reason for it. I don't know why, but maybe if I read this or do a bit of research on maybe on Wikipedia, you can find out the reasons why. But happy to have this added to my Rudyard Kapuscinski collection. And then next is another author who I've got a collection of his books and who's written a lot of. This guy is much more popular in his travel writing. Very popular contemporary travel writer. This is William Dalrymple. This is The Age of Cali. And then the subtitle is Indian Travels and Encounters. I got hooked on William Dalrymple on his book called, I think it's called From the Sacred Mountain. If I'm not mistaken, that's the title, and that's about, it's a travel log through the Middle East, but he focuses on the minorities of the Middle East, Christians in the Middle East, Christianity in Egypt, Christianity in Palestine, Christianity in Lebanon and Syria. I think he covers Greece and Turkey as well. And then that led me, most of his books, although that was about the Middle East, most of his books are about India, Indian subcontinent, the British in India, just Indian history. So I think this one is more of the same, covering Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and India, the entire subcontinent there. So I'm happy to have this. Hopefully, if this is anything like his Middle Eastern book, then it'll be well worth the little money I spent to get this. So again, happy also to find this. And then this next author, I got this purely on the author. This is purely a YouTube purchase. This author has become very popular on YouTube for being very an American author who's very anti-American. He's not anti-American, but he's been very anti-American foreign policy, especially vis-a-vis the war with Russia. Very against the war with Russia. And that's Jeffrey D. Sachs. And this book is The Price of Civilization. And his name, his YouTube videos are very, you can tell he's a Midwesterner from his accent. And the subtitle has a very Midwestern, nice, idealistic sort of subtitle. It's Reawaken American Virtue and Prosperity. Prosperity, let's ignore that for a minute. The virtue, American virtue. This book, this is an updated version because there's updated with a new preface by the author. But I think the original is from 2011. This is just a paperback 2012 edition. So, before the wars in Russia and Ukraine really sprang up. So it'll be interesting to compare Jeffrey Sachs before the Russia war and now, because he's big on YouTube, was very critical of the previous Biden administration. Still critical. While the jury's still out on the Trump administration, it's only been 100 days when I'm filming this. Trump's very new in his second term, but Yeah, saw his name on see him bandied about YouTube all the time. I said, let's see exactly what he's talking about. Let's see him 10, 15 years ago. How consistent is he? I mean, his criticism or his anti-war, anti-Ukraine war stance, anti-war with Russia stance is very um, is very. I'm losing the words. I don't know. I can't think of the correct words that I want to use, but very vitriolic. A lot of vitriol against America and their involvement in the war in Ukraine. And the question always comes up: is this guy is he compromised? Is Russia paying this Jeffrey Sachs, Professor Jeffrey Sachs of Columbia? Is it Columbia or New York University? One of them. Is he? I don't know, but I'd like to see what he was writing before he became a YouTube phenomenon. So it'll be interesting to read. This next book is, I got this because I can get it actually, it's within reach. I actually got the volume 2 first, now I found the volume 1. This is What If, and it's edited by Robert Cowley, and it's Military Historians Imagine What Might Have Been. It's What If History. And I had this earlier, oops, sorry, I have to flip it around. It says, What If America? Eminent historians imagine what might have been. And you've got Queen Elizabeth and the Union Jack on the White House. That's funny. But here, that's what if, and that's Hitler in a very victorious stance. I think the idea being, what if Hitler had won the war? What if the Nazis had won the war? And again, Cowley is just the editor, so there's different historical. This one is military history. Different events in military history and what would have happened. What if the other side won? So you have, for example, no glory that was Greece, conquest denied. This is the premature death of Alexander the Great. Imagining if Alexander had never invaded Asia. There's so many. Some of the authors, contributors to this: Victor Davis Hanson, Lewis Lapham, Barry S. Strauss, Cecilia Holland. These are the ones that I'm recognizing. David McCullough, Alistair Horn, James McPherson, Robert Cowley, John Keegan, Stephen E. Ambrose. This is like, what if the Cold War? What if? What was that one? Excuse me. The Cold War turns hot. What if the Cold War turned hot? What if atomic alternatives in Europe? Okay, for example, the Soviet invasion of Japan, triumph of the dictators, Bismarck's empire. Just interesting things. Same thing goes on with the What If America, which is less military history and more history in general. But one thing I noticed just reading the authors mentioned was more of a right-wing bent. This is by Pan Books, but a lot of the historians are more of a right-wing conservative bent rather than, it's just, I mean, what if history isn't very ideological. But again, I think these books, this one, the What If of Military History, is from, first published in 1999. Okay, so pre-September 11th, but I think it became more popular after September 11th. And again, the choice of the historians, mostly of a more conservative bent. I don't think, again, I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm just saying I think there's a reason for that, but it doesn't change the fact that it's very interesting. What if it's interesting to see, stuff with novels. You can probably get inspired to write a novel just reading these. So I'll be interested to do that. The last two books, we were on a military theme. This is going to continue the military theme. This is The Battle for the Falklands. by Max Hastings and Simon Jenkins. These are two authors that are very prodigious. They write a lot of books. They're very active, and they're combined to write The Battle for the Falklands. This is interesting. I was thinking if I was ever to write a history, this would be probably something I'd like to write about. Now that 1982, when the Falklands War happened, it's probably history now. That's what, 92, 2002, 2012, or 43, almost 50 years. In less than a decade, it'll be 50 years since the Falkland Wars. I wasn't born during the Falkland Wars. It'd be interesting, but this is a chunky book, so I'm not surprised that there's a book about it, because I hardly ever see anybody talk, or I don't see a lot of books about it, but I was happy to find this one, and it's in very good condition. And again, it's the two very well-known sorry, somebody was calling me on my phone. Two very well-known authors that I'm happy have teamed up to do this. Simon Jenkins writes a lot of shorter books about a whole variety. He's written so many books, but recently he's gone to writing very short books, but very often about different subjects. And then Max Hastings has also built himself as a leading British military historian. Yeah, this is copyright 1983. 1983, so right after the war. So this is fresh perspective. And again, like I said earlier, it'd be better if there was a more recent, updated history of the Falkland Wars and the background behind it. And then I think the final book for today, for this episode, is by Richard Overy. Again, military history. This is The Third Reich, a Chronicle. I have Richard Overy's other book. I don't know if it's within reach without getting off camera, but and that one is it's called Blood and Ruins. It's just a sweeping history of World War II, but he starts it in 1932, or when the Japanese invade China, basically. It doesn't start at 1939. And then this is a chronicle of the Third Reich, so comes well blurbed, from what I remember. Richard Overy is a very eminent historian of World War II, and it goes into the Third Reich. I don't know if there's a lot of military in the front, but Third Reich, could that be also political? Or is it? I guess it's a World War II history from the Nazi side, basically. If let's read it. I think it's better if we read the back cover, better than I can explain. It says, defined by the messianic, iconic figure of Adolf Hitler, the 12 years of the Third Reich were one of the pivotal periods of the modern age. From small beginnings in the 1920s, the Nazi Party rose to a position of absolute power in Germany, bringing with it militarization of society, the apparatus of state terror, and vicious discrimination against political opponents, gypsies, homosexuals, and above all, Jews. Hitler's ambition thrust the world into a destructive and bloody conflict that led to the annihilation of millions of Europeans and eventually led to the total collapse of his regime. The Third Reich, a Chronicle, charts the rise and fall of Nazi power. Okay, so pre-war and during the war, in a concise, yes, agreed, and compelling narrative of the period, amplified by extensive quotations from documents, letters, diaries, and oral testimony. Authoritative, informative, and written by a scholar steeped in knowledge of the history. That's what I was trying to say. The Third Reich, a Chronicle, brings the bloody realities of war, conquest, and genocide vividly to life. So again, World War II history by an author that I like and that I find interesting. So yeah, I grabbed it. So yeah, that is part 2. There is one more pile of books. That'll be part 3. I'll do it in a separate video. I don't know about tonight. The sun is setting here in the Middle East, in the desert. Either tonight, if not tonight, I'll make part 3 tomorrow. Show you the books that I got, and then inventory them and put them in my library. And yeah, thank you, BookTube, for watching. See you. Salute.